We continue now at the top of Daf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph in Meseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 43a. The Gemara says, B'shalom lo yalvenu. I understand why he's not allowed to lend him money. And the Mefarish over here says, B'shalom lo yalvenu madir l'mudr. I understand why the madir cannot lend money to the mudr, meaning to the person who is prohibited from getting benefit. Devadai kamhani le hanam meforsemes. That's a clear benefit. When you lend someone money, you are benefiting them. The kamhani le, as the Gemara says, that's considered a benefit. Of course, that would be a problem. Ela lo yilva heimenu. But when it comes to saying that you're not allowed to borrow from him, so my kamahani le. So what exactly is the benefit when the person borrows? As the Mefarish over here says, Avalo yilva mimenu hamadir min hamuder. It says that the madir cannot borrow from the muder, meaning he can't borrow money from the person who's prohibited to get the benefit. So my hano kamati leila muder mimai da'ozif lamadir. How is the muder getting any hano when he lends money? Why should lending money be a problem? And the Gemara continues further. Now we could actually understand why he can't borrow from him and why he can't purchase from him. Why? Because really maybe there is a certain kind of benefit in that situation. The Mefarish over here says, we could come up with some kind of benefit that you are getting in a situation where you are lending the money. How? The Mefarish gives an example. Let's say, for example, the person lends money and the coins that he gives are not such good quality coins and he receives ones that are better quality back. So there is a possibility that even the person who is lending money is getting a benefit. Also, you have a situation, let's say you shouldn't buy from him. Let's say it's a situation where he is selling something that is difficult to sell, and so therefore, again, it is a benefit if he's able to sell that person, if he's able to sell that item. So you can come up with scenarios where there is a benefit. But the Gemara says, Ela lo yishal himenu, but it says he can't borrow from him items. So in that situation, my kamishani mine. So what exact benefit is there for the person who's lending out the item? It doesn't seem that that person is getting any benefit in that situation. The Mefarish over here says, Ela lo yishal himenu my hana mati l'muder ki mashal okelev. What hana does the muder get when he lends out his items to the other individual? Hakamaf chiz vade, like kli. Certainly that kli is going to deteriorate at least a little. V'lomali le destam shelah. There's nothing really beneficial when he lends out an item. So what exactly is the benefit? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina says, you have to explain our Mishnah. The Mishnah means actually that both people, both individuals are Mudar Hana. They both had Nedarim not to benefit from one another. And therefore it goes in both directions, and therefore it goes in both directions in terms of what's prohibited. He can't lend and he cannot borrow. Abaye says a different answer. Gezerah lishol mishum lahashol. We make a gezerah on borrowing because of lending. V'chein bekulu gezerah. That's how we explain all of these cases. It is simply a gezerah. The Mefarish over here says, Kagon shenadru zemizeh d'shneim asurim zeh bazeh. We could answer that the case of the Mishnah is they're both asur, one to the other. And gezerah lishol d'isharis le lishol asinami lahashol. If you allow him to borrow, he's going to end up coming to lend as well. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Amar lo hashileni parascha. Let's say he says to him, one says to the other, lend me your cow. So Amar lo, so he says back to him, Eina penuya, it's not available. I can't lend it to you. Amar, so then he says, Konem sadai shani choresh bo liolam. I take a konem on my field. I'm not going to plow my field with that cow forever. He's angry that he wasn't able to borrow the cow, and he makes this kind of neder. The Mefarish says, Amar lo hashileni paras chalab mudar amadir askina. We're not talking here about a case of a mudar amadir. Just in general, he says, lend me the cow. And he says back, Eina penuya de malachtoyos. I'm doing work with it. I can't lend it out. V'nisatzev hashol keneged hamashil. And so therefore, the person who wanted to borrow, he gets upset. Since you refuse to do it, so therefore I'm going to make this konim. I'm not going to plow my field with your cow forever. And the Mefarish then continues, after this whole thing happened, he ends up that he does lend him the cow. So then the Mishnah is going to explain, so we see if this is the kind of person who he personally would plow his own field, so then he already made a neder. He's not going to plow the field with the cow, so he personally can't use the cow to plow the field. However, again, we'll see it in a moment in the Mishnah. However, other people, they are mutter. the nafshe another. Since he normally plows his own field, he really only had in mind himself that he can't use the cow to plow his field. He wasn't thinking of other people. Other people, therefore, are allowed to plow the field with that particular cow, and that is what the Mishnah over here says. Again, imhaya darko lachrosh, if it's normal for him to actually do the plowing, hu asr v'choladim mutarim, so he's prohibited to use that cow to plow his field. V'mein darko lachrosh, but if it's not normal for him to do the plowing personally, so then he was intending that vow to go on everybody. So hu v'choladim asurin, so he and all other people, it's all prohibited. And the Mishnah continues, hamudar hana mechaveru. Let's say you have a situation where a person is mudar hana, he can't get benefit from his friend. Ve'ein lo mayochel. Now it turns out the person who's not able to get benefit, he has nothing to eat. He needs something to sustain him. So holech eitzal hachenvani. So then the other person can go to the chenvani, to the storekeeper. V'yomer, he can say as follows. He can say, ish ploni noder mimeni hana. So and so, he's not able to get any benefit from me through this neder. Ve'eini yodea ma'es, and I don't know what I can do about it. How can I help this individual out? So then the Mishnah says, "V'hu no sein lo." So now he, meaning the storekeeper, can now give to the person who was the mudar hana. Uba v'notel means that the storekeeper can collect money from this other person who's really the one who wants to give this benefit to the individual. So that's a way that indirectly the person can benefit the mudar hana. And the Mishnah continues along the same lines. Haya beso livnos gidro ligdor sadeo lixor. Let's say the person has a house to build, or he has a fence to repair, or he has a field to harvest. Holech etzel apolim. So the other individual who's not supposed to provide the benefit, he can go to the workers. V'yomer, and he says, ish ploni mudar mimeni. So and so is mudar hana for me. I cannot benefit him. Mudar mimeni hana. Ve'eni yodea ma'esa. And again, I don't know what to do. It's a way of hinting that they should help out. Ve'hein osin imo. And again, they'll do the work. And then they can come and collect their payment from this other individual who's not supposed to be providing the benefit, again, an indirect way to provide the benefit. And the Mishnah continues again along the same lines. If they're walking on the road, and the mudar hana, the person who cannot receive the benefit, has nothing to eat. So no sein le'echol l'shum matana. So the person who's not supposed to give the benefit, he can give it to somebody else, to another individual as a gift. And then in this indirect fashion, the person who's mudar hana will now be mutter to take that food. Now let's say there's nobody else with him, he can't give it as a matana to somebody else, so maniach ala sela or ala geder, so then he could place the food down on a rock or on a fence. V'yomer, and he'll say, harein mufkarim l'chol misha yachbots. These are considered hefker for anybody who wants. V'halo notel v'yochel. And then this person who's the mudar hana, he can take and he can eat it. V'Rabbi Yossi oser. But Rabbi Yossi says that actually is prohibited. You're not allowed to place it on the rock or on the geder. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, my time with Rabbi Yossi. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi that he prohibits, he doesn't allow the individual to put it on the rock or on the geder? And the answer, he says, is Kasavar Hefker Kematana, because Rabbi Yossi holds that Hefker is similar to Matana. In what fashion? Ma Matana Ada'asyame Rishus Nosein Rishus Makabel, just like by a Matana, by a gift. So it doesn't leave the Rishus of the Nosein, of the giver, until it actually enters the Rishus of the Makabel. So Av Hefker, so too when it comes to Hefker, Ada'asi L'Rishus Zoch. It doesn't really leave the Rishus of the person who's giving it away until it is received by the person who is receiving it. As the Mefarish over here says, Ma Matana Lo Zochi Ba Makabel Ada'asi Liyade, just like by a matana, the person doesn't really receive it until he actually gets it in his hand. Af hefker nami lo nafik merishos mafkir, so to hefker, it doesn't leave the rishos of the mafkir adasi liyad lidei zoch, until it comes to the person who is receiving it. Hilkach b'hadei d'shakal leheich me'al asela k'man d'shakal miyadu mamish dami vaser. Therefore, when the person, the mudar hana, takes it off the rack, it's really like he's taking it directly from the person who is giving it, who made it hefker. And the Gemara continues, Meisiv Rav Abba. So Rav Abba asks the following question on this explanation. It says, V'halo notel v'ochel. Again, he can put it onto a rock or onto the geder, and the other person, the mudar hana, can take it. Rabbi Yossi oser. Rabbi Yossi says that is prohibited. But then in the Brayso, Rabbi Yossi explains his position. Amar Rabbi Yossi says, Amosai, when do I say it's prohibited? Bisman shenidro kodem lehefkeru. That's only when the neder came before he made the item hefker. And the Mefarish over here explains, Meseches Ravava Braisi the Katani Nami Menechel Asela Valonotel V'Ochel. This is a Braisa with the same case as the Mishnah, where it says he puts it on the rack and the other person can take it. Amar Rabbi Yossi, now Rabbi Yossi says, Eimosai Ani Yoser. When do I say it's prohibited? Bizman Shenidro Kodim Lefkera. That's only when the neder came before he was mafkirit. The Hashtam Estabra time of the Aser. That makes sense that it's Aser. Mishum Dechashayidira, because at the time of the neder, Mikol Nechasav, when he made this neder prohibiting the other individual from all of his property, so Mikol Nechasav Ediru, he made it from all of his property. Va'afilu Kiyefkiro Nasr Ben, and even when he makes it hefker, that prohibition is going to continue, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Mem Gimel Amud Beis.